The feedback on my first What Happens Next puzzle was very positive, so I'm going to continue with the series. And here's my second position for you. I've selected a recent game from the Italian Team Championship. It's a very typical position actually. White has these two hanging pawns in the centre of the board, or at least they could be hanging pawns if black captures here. But at the moment black is keeping the tension. Both sides are pretty well coordinated. I like black's setup very much with these double rooks and the queen and bishop in the corner. You can see there's a lot of energy that's stored up behind that pawn. If black ever captures, then it'll release all the energy from black's pieces. So there's a lot of pressure here. On the other hand, white is pretty well coordinated too. These bishops, if the centre clears, could fly across the board to the king's side, and the queen is actively placed, ready to perhaps attack on the king's side. So as I said, a very typical position. White's now played knight e5, which is also very typical, standard, the knight hitting the outpost. I was looking at this. I think if I had this position with white, I might have waited and played, well, the move, I mean, there are several moves that white can make. For example, knight g3 is pretty sensible. That guards against perhaps a black knight coming in here, and it drifts towards the king's side. I quite like that. And the other move I like is to play h3 actually, so that it takes away the g4 square from the knight, and also prepares perhaps this manoeuvre. Now that could be quite nice to eliminate the knight on f6. Anyway, this is all by the by. White played knight e5. Okay, very often the knight can be very good on the outpost. Here black took and now reacted very well indeed. Instead of moving the knight straight away, he played bishop c5, setting up a counter-attack. So the bishop is obviously excellent on this diagonal, and there is a threat to white's queen. Now if the queen were to move away, then black could plunge in with knight e4. Now of course there's an attack here, so the knight has to be eliminated. And you can see how this, once the pawn is gone from d5, then this releases the energy of black's pieces down here. So white would probably have to take, and already I prefer black because this rook is about to slam down on d3. Maybe the queen can switch over and black has control of the d file, and the bishop on c5 looks wonderful, and this one could well come into the game fairly shortly. So, and I don't see where white's attack is, so it looks good for black to me. So white didn't move the queen, but instead played bishop to d4. Okay, the knight on f6 is en prise, so that was moved into e4. And white took, black recaptured. And now if white were to exchange on d5, black would recapture. And, well, probably this position is roughly equal, although I slightly prefer black's chances. Again, it's all to do with the pieces. I think black's pieces are really actively placed. Perhaps you could switch the queen over to control the d file. That appeals to me. I mean, white's pieces aren't bad either, but perhaps white feared that he would lose the initiative here. It's possible. So instead of capturing on d5, he played rook d4. Now, this becomes very sharp indeed, because after pawn takes pawn, instead of recapturing, he switched the rook across to the king's side. So this is going all in. So now white has queen and rook ready to attack, and this bishop as well, cutting down towards the king's side. So this is a really double-edged position. And this is the position that I'd like you to study, and I'm going to give you two moves. So the first move I'm offering you is pawn to g6, so that blocks out white's pieces to some extent on the king's side. So that's one option. And if you'd like to play that, click on the left hand side of the screen. And your second option is rook to d1. And if you'd like to play that one, click on the right hand side of the screen. So is it g6 or is it rook d1? Those are your choices. After you click on the appropriate button, then I'll give my verdict on those moves, and I'll see you soon.